Y'all, if you're looking for a true crime podcast with a different point of view, the Prosecutors Podcast is the one for you. I'm not kidding. This is one of my favorite podcasts, and now I'm so lucky to call Brett and Alice friends. Each week, they bring their unique perspective as prosecutors to the most famous cold case mysteries of all time. And I'm telling you, these are perspectives I have never heard before. This podcast is more than just the story. Alice and Brett walk you through the legal problems lurking behind every case. They break down the complexities of the criminal justice system with humor and a personal touch. And they do it without ever losing sight of the pursuit of justice, both for the victims and the accused. Murder, mayhem, disappearances, you name it. If it's true crime, they're on the case. Check out The Prosecutors wherever you listen to podcasts. This is Murder in Alliance, an active investigation into who killed Yvonne Lane. I'm Maggie Freeling. Hey y'all, this is the Q&A episode that I have advertised. The team and I were live from Alliance, Ohio this week, answering your questions and talking about the case. We got so many good questions beforehand and during the show, so it was hard to answer all of them, but I promise if we didn't, they're addressed in future episodes, specifically ones about Joe and other persons of interest. We just can't give everything away yet. And a couple of quick notes, our internet in our Alliance hotel is terrible. So I'm sorry that I personally sound a little robotic. I was having a tough time with that. We're working with what we have out here. Otherwise, it was a great conversation with amazing people, and I hope y'all join us for the next one. Can people hear me?
Yes.
We hear you, Maggie. We see you too.
We did it, guys.
All right, I think we've got everybody here now, finally.
Yeah, Jason, your windows look rainy.
Yeah, it has been thunderstorming off and on here in Austin, Texas. I think they're trying to fill up Lady Bird Lake so everybody can have fun. But in the meantime, if you go out there, you will get struck by lightning. It is thunderstorming.
Wow.
But, yeah.
So Josh McComb is in here. People heard him in the podcast. Hello, Josh. Aaron Case, our legal intern, is here, who is freaking amazing. I'm just trying to shout out people that I know from the podcast.
Oh, wow.
Hi, Josh. Hey, Aaron. Cool. Yeah, so we had a lot of people writing really good questions. So I'm basically going to be like the moderator, and people are very welcome to ask questions in the sidebar. So why don't we start with get everyone to introduce themselves.
I'm Sue. I'm David's wife. I'm his advocate of 22 years. That's why I look a little crazy. 22 years will do that to you.
You've done an amazing, very difficult job for 22 years. And we were saying today in the car that we wouldn't be able to do this without you. All the work that you put in beforehand. So thank you for that.
No problem.
Yeah. And Jason, who are you?
Yes, I work with John and Danny with Proclaim Justice. To make the long story short for Reader's Digest. But, John and Danny and I, we have a history that goes way back from John, fighting to get me free, in a similar situation what David's in right now. So hope it carries you a long way. And moral is, that people will get you through it. And so we're about getting David home, which is innocent and everything.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes, 18. And so I know what Sue's gone through with 20, partially, not 22 of it. So it's a long
Close enough.
Yeah, it has its toll. There's many trials and tribulations you go through, and everybody goes through it together in their own way. So thanks for being pillar of support, for David there.
Thank you.
And then we have our amazing PIs.
Are we going to listen to Cher?
I only listened to Cher the first morning of the first trip that we're on the ground in a case. So,
oh, gotcha.
Yeah, but I love Cher, and I make no apologies. I'm a metalhead, but I love Cher. I don't care who judges me for it.
All right, so that's all of us. And then, of course, I am Maggie, host of the podcast and journalist. So I'm going to pull up some questions. Basically, the biggest question that we had, and Sue knows this is coming, so this is really pointed at Sue, is why didn't any of the appeals hold up? Yes, there were appeals. There was a habeas. He's been through the entire process. That's why episode 1 was called Dead in the Water. That's what he said to me when I first talked to David. His case is dead in the water. He's used everything up. So people want to know, Sue, why was George Hale denied as a new witness? That seems really credible. That seems like something that could very likely, overturn a conviction.
It seems like they were just negating everything we brought up. I mean, George Hale, that was huge. And they said, oh, well, he wasn't reliable. Says who? I mean, what are you quoting to say that? You're just deciding he's unreliable because it doesn't suit your purposes?
And who said he was unreliable? It was the prosecutor?
Well, I know John Leach, the policeman, did. He said that on Dwayne Pullman's newscast.
He did.
He says he couldn't remember why, but he just remembered that he was unreliable. And I found George very reliable.
Yeah.
The story never changed. It's been 22 years. He's still in the same story.
Yeah, from talking with Dwayne, he believes everything George said he saw. So, Dwayne's a seasoned journalist and thinks that he is reliable. So what, so he had his direct appeal.
Yeah,
go ahead.
He did the direct appeal, and then he did the appeal to the state of Ohio, and the state of Ohio wrote one sentence turning him down. They don't have to do anything but say no.
Which in direct appeals is usually pretty common because it's not like there's much new evidence in a direct appeal.
Yeah, it's got to be procedural.
Right.
And as long as they kind of, sort of did their job, it's hard to appeal anything. They say he didn't call any witnesses. Well, that was just his strategy. So as long as they say strategy, they get away with it. But we found new evidence. So we started presenting that in a post-conviction petition. We did the first one just to get our foot in the door so that the time didn't shut on us. We had a year to do it. And so we put something in, ineffective assistance of counsel, and that they manifest weight of the evidence. So we put that in to keep the door open for us, and then we could appeal. I mean, we could add to it, amend it. And since they had no intention of answering it ever, we amended it 3 times. We found George. Joe recanted. And when we found George, the lawyer put him in with the wrong name. They gave him a new last name, so we had to change that.
Yeah, and so Michelle is a good friend. She does amazing work. She is a prosecutor in Long Island, New York, where I'm also from. And so she's saying in the chat, direct appeals only encompass what was done at the trial. If it's not not part of the direct appeal. And ineffective assistance of counsel is one of the hardest claims to win because basically you are, given a right to an attorney, but that doesn't mean you're given a right to a good attorney.
Right.
So direct appeals are hard, but so he went through his habeas as well.
Yeah, they filed for documents and they got that, and they started interviewing people. They took depositions of all the police officers, and they seemed to think it was a big chuckle fest. I mean, they giggled through every statement they ever gave, and I mean, nobody seemed to take this seriously. I heard early on that they were considering these 2 guys a throwaway because nobody cared about them.
And Joe basically has no legal claims because he made deals.
Right. He has no way to get back in court.
Y'all, I am so excited for summer, and it seems like it could possibly be a normal summer. So anytime I have off from work or make time to take off, I want to be at the beach. I want to be barbecuing. I want to be outside on a patio drinking margaritas. I do not want to be spending time at the post office. So with Stamps.com, you can skip trips to the post office and save on postage. Stamps.com makes it easy for small businesses to mail and ship without ever needing to take a trip to the post office. And even if you're not a small business, this is great. I mail a lot of letters, and Stamps.com makes it easy for me to print USPS postage on my printer. Mail and ship anytime, anywhere from your computer. Send letters, ship packages, and pay less, a lot less, with discounted rates from USPS and UPS. Stop wasting time and going to the post office. Go to Stamps.com instead. There's no risk. And with my promo code MIA, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the homepage and type MIA. That's Stamps.com, promo code MIA. Stamps.com. Never go to the post office again.
So someone sent in, the fact that a trial can even take place on an investigation with this many procedural mistakes, lack of investigation, due diligence, deliberate omissions, direct conflict of interest, and incompetence is a red flag failure on our legal system. Where is the accountability within the system? And I would direct this to John and Danny, like looking into this case now. I mean, can you address some of that? Like, you know, what have you found in what you guys have worked on and done, and what the detectives back then have done?
Well, I mean, I think anybody can look at anytime you have the chief of police bringing his date into a crime scene. That's a big problem. We have photographic evidence. We know that detectives were leaving bloody footprints at the crime scene. So there's a lot of different things that they did, in my opinion, that were at the crime scene just completely inept, potentially corrupt. I don't know, but certainly inept. And how it goes to trial, it's really up to the prosecutor. I mean, you know, if they want to bring charges, they're going to bring charges. And It happens all over the country all the time, where we have cases brought to trial that are so weak, that have so many glaring errors in the investigation, that have so many different conflicts of interest and all that stuff. But it's a real flaw in our system. You know, the famous saying is, I can indict a ham sandwich. And we see that to be true a lot. So, you know, I wish that there was a better way to do things, and there probably is, but it's easy to bring somebody to trial.
And Jason, can you speak a little bit about accountability? Because your case was so similar to this, and your case was so dirty as well. You know, y'all are working on a case right now that you have called the West Memphis 3 2.0, that if anyone wants to know about that, they can listen to season 1, Unjust and Unsolved. But it's a lot of the same players doing the same things. I mean, Jason, where's the accountability?
For real. You know, in West Memphis, the police department there were under investigation by the FBI. When the crime happened that I was arrested for and eventually convicted for happened, the FBI reached out and the state police reached out to assist in the investigation. But because Interstate 40 there is a super major drug highway, and the police department there becomes so used to raiding it and keeping money and drugs and vehicles and whatnot for themselves and splitting it up, that they didn't want any outside scrutiny. They're like, well, you know, we can handle this on our own, you know, and figure this out. And so they didn't want any help. And so what you have is a culture of criminality, you know, and not credibility. And so if you have something like what was talked about just on the last episode here, you know, or one before that, we're talking about the psychic, and you had the police officers going there, and you had the psychic questioning the police officer and saying, hey, you know, what's going on? Why is she friends with all these police officers? What's going on? Why are all these police officers having these sexual relations with each other? Do they have a night? Did they know whose night that was when her body came up missing? That they all looked at each other and say, that's such and such's night, you know? And so where's the accountability, the credibility? And so it's more like a cover-up ability, you know? And so intent intent. Did they intentionally walk a girlfriend through the crime scene to jeopardize it and to plant, to make sure that you can't rely on any evidence from it because it's, been tainted. So where is the credibility in that? And so we gotta watch out for our team there on the ground. Danny and John, y'all gotta be careful out there. Police department because Maggie, yes, you're there too.
I live here.
Sue, be careful because
it's true. Sue has been for like 22 years enemy number one, but
I've been chased through the graveyard. I've had my house shot at.
But to your point, Maggie, with the our other case another case of ours, West Memphis 3 2.0. It just shows you that it happens all over the place.
Yeah.
I would love to say that David's case is unique, and it's not. I mean, every case is unique in its own way, but the corruption of police, the corruption of district attorneys' offices, it happens all over the place. And I'd love it if we worked ourselves out of a job because it never happened again. But I think we're going to be secure for a long time, unfortunately.
So again, a lot of appeals questions. So this is not necessarily a question. I'm just going to read this. Who had the psychic tapes and should they have been given to the defense? Also, why is David in jail and not the entire Alliance PD? So that basically goes to qualified immunity. So just my PSA for the day. We should end qualified immunity. Absolutely 100%. What is it, Michigan right now? If anyone in Michigan is there, they are doing something that cops and prosecutors have to buy like an insurance kind of situation. I was just reading that today on Temujin Kansu's page. If anyone knows about that, it's fascinating. But that would certainly help with these kinds of things.
There's no consequence, and they know it.
Yeah, but you mentioned the psychic tape, and that's so interesting because in all the various cases that we work. This is the first one that we've had audio of the two lead detectives visiting a psychic, and not only visiting a psychic, but naming by name people in their own department that they've got questions about as it relates to this case. So that the psychic tape was fascinating when we first heard it.
It's unprecedented. I've never, because they chose to leave Alliance and they went beyond. Even though they knew that David was a suspect so early on, they obviously didn't feel confident enough in David being a suspect that it was weeks after David had already been looked at and retained an attorney that they independently took it upon themselves to travel, I think, to the Cleveland area.
Yeah.
Right.
Located a psychic and started dropping names of other suspects, which meant they knew that David wasn't a strong suspect and they had their doubts. Therefore, they the investigating detectives, and in their defense, these aren't seasoned homicide investigators. One of them we spoke with, it was his only detective case.
First and last.
Podcast too, but we would say that Samson, it was his only case ever.
Yeah, he told us that he worked one case and that was it.
Wow.
Wonder why.
Yeah.
So someone wants to know, did the psychic have any connection to Alliance or the case? It was from Michelle. Not that we know of. We don't know who she is.
Yeah.
She was somebody that Mucklow's wife went to see. I don't know. She probably looked her up in the ads or something.
Yeah.
I would love to see her found out and questioned, not about her psychic ability, but just what she thought about that visit and those detectives and anything that may not have been on the tapes. That
unfortunately she passed.
Yeah.
You know who she was.
She died a few years ago.
Okay. I didn't know who she was.
Yeah. We knew her first
find
name.
Another psychic, and we can get them to connect.
We have a seance and see if we can bring her back in.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm not participating in this.
Chasing Sue through the graveyard.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Well, I found out who that was, so I know who that was.
Y'all, the summer is here and we're all trying to be as healthy as possible. And that's why I am so excited Care of is a sponsor of Murder in Alliance. Care of is high quality vitamins formulated with good for you, clean ingredients that are backed by science. Care of makes it easy with a personalized subscription delivered to your door each month, contact free, so you never have to worry about running out to refill your vitamins. Care of makes it easy to get into a routine of taking your vitamins. Your recommendations come in a daily, individually wrapped packets that are perfect for getting back into or starting your routine. And my favorite part is that they are catered to you. You take Care of's in-depth online quiz that asks you questions about your diet, lifestyle, health concerns to help you address your specific wellness goals. You get a personally tailored approach to your unique health needs, and you can retake the quiz at any time. Care of is personalized vitamins shipped right to your door. And you can get 50% off your first Care of order if you go to takecareof.com and enter code Alliance50. That's 50% off your first Care of order if you go to takecareof.com, enter code Alliance50. Y'all, you already know, HelloFresh is one of my favorite sponsors, and that's because it cuts the stressful meal planning and grocery store trips out of my day so I can enjoy cooking and spend more time doing what I love. HelloFresh has quick and easy meals, 15 to 20-minute dinners, breakfast on the go, and more easy options perfect for your busy lifestyle. I'm trying to cut out meat as much as possible in my life, so I got the vegetarian HelloFresh. And let me tell you, this isn't just pastas. One of my recipes is an apricot almond and chickpea tagine. These are things I just wouldn't think of making. It totally adds variety to my cooking. And the best part, they give you pre-portioned ingredients so nothing goes to waste. And if I get tired of vegetarian meals, I can easily change my order on the app within minutes. You can change your delivery day, food preferences, plan size, or skip a week whenever you need. So just go to HelloFresh.com/MIA Maggie14 and use code MIA Maggie14 for up to 14 free meals plus free shipping. I don't know why you would sit on that offer. Just try it. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. Try it out. HelloFresh.com/MIA Maggie14 and use code MIA Maggie14 for up to 14 free meals plus free shipping.
So someone wants to know, was there any testimony during the trial from a forensic pathologist or a medical expert as to how such a small knife could, with one swipe, make a cut so deep? And I did mention this. You had Brent Turvey look at it, Sue. And remind me, Sue, this one's for you, I guess. Remind me if there was anyone else who looked at it. But, I mean, the wound was 8 inches long, 4 inches deep, and the blade on the Joe knife was 3.5. So
3.1.
3.1.
It was a pocket knife.
So that is almost impossible to do that.
I would think. I'm not a knife expert, but that seems kind of unlikely.
And so I guess the answer to this person is no. David's team didn't call any expert.
Oh, they didn't call any witnesses, let alone experts. They called somebody who saw Joe buy a pocket knife, and they called David's child support attorney, and they recalled the child support advocate for Yvonne. She asked to be recalled because she didn't like the way her testimony came across, because she thought it was negative sounding, and she wanted to be more positive for David.
I would be wondering about on that knife. Did they run any forensic tests on it after it was found to determine if there was any biological material retrievable from like the handle or whatnot and everything? But
I don't believe they did. Everything was so their forensic testing was minuscule, if
it says I hear a voice.
not non-existent.
Yeah.
You know, no crime scene is perfect. Obviously, defense attorneys always attack the crime scene. They're never going to be perfect. But this particular crime scene, and again, there's not an abundance of homicides that are committed that this police department investigated, but they're independent experts that have classified this as one of the worst investigated crime scenes they'd ever seen.
Aaron, our legal intern, said that criminalists found no trace evidence on the knife at all.
Right.
So, Sue, a lot of people have questions about Joe, and was there a hotel party? Could Joe have paid for this on his own? So what do you know about, how Joe could have paid for the hotel room?
I think Joe's shady. Every story he tells is different. So I, as much as I tried to support him through the whole thing, I just don't know how, because his story keeps changing. The truth never changes. So first story, I was the trial testimony. And then when I read it and then knew what the crime scene looked like, when I compared it to the crime scene photos, I realized that what he testified to did not occur. So I knew something was wrong. So I asked him to call me so I could talk to him about it.
Was it that you had a problem with his initial confession versus what he testified to, or just the specifics that he testified to in David's trial?
I had a problem with everything. I read what he said and I thought, this just doesn't make sense. What he's saying makes no sense as I visualize it happening. And then once I got the crime scene photos, I realized it made no sense. It doesn't match the crime scene photos. You can't be sitting next to somebody on the couch and still have blood all over the back of the couch. It would have to transfer through your body, and it can't do that. So I had questions. So I asked him the questions, but every time I've asked him questions, his answer seems to change.
So Michelle wants to know, Sue, is there any way to corroborate Joe's testimony? And I do want to mention, because we haven't brought it up yet, there will be an episode about Joe. And Josh McComb, who you also heard in the show, he's in the chat too. And there's talk, it's presented as Joe was super broke and never worked in his life, and everyone gave him money, which is true. He was broke. But Sue, at the time, didn't he potentially have a job and could have paid for a hotel room?
He was supposed to be working for a landscaper and doing some odd jobs. And what I understand is that Joe asked other people for money because he didn't want to spend his own. So if he was asking you for money, it's because he wanted to keep his own.
Yeah. So, what do you know about a hotel party?
I heard he told me he had planned a party. He had rented a room. Then he said that he told other witnesses I found that someone else was having a party and he was just attending. And other people have said he wasn't getting a hotel at all. There was never a hotel, that the receipts were forged. I know Joe didn't forge them because, he may have signed his name on them. I don't know, but that's out of his wheelhouse, I'm afraid.
So we haven't brought up another witness yet, but this is a really good time to mention. So there was a listener did have a question about this because the listener was on Patreon reading all the case files. So they did notice there's a guy in the case files named Daniel Rogers. Yeah. And he was walking by the house around twilight on the 31st. So around the time of the murder, would have been after Jim was seen with her. And he saw a man walking purposefully, trying to get into the house. And again,
reached above the door to try to get the key.
Looking for a key or something. And again, similar to George, I guess didn't think anything of it and then went to the police when, everyone discovers that their neighbor has been murdered. So yes, there was an interview with this Daniel Rogers on 4/26/99. Just another witness seeing somebody at the house. Other than that, Sue, and Danny and John, I don't know if you've come across it. I only have this one report that looks like he was also potentially hypnotized.
Relaxation therapy, maybe.
Yeah, the same thing that they were trying to do to George. But other than that, I don't know if there was... It seems like in the report, he does mention a lineup. And he didn't pick anybody out.
Right.
So who knows what happened to him if he was ever asked again, if it was Joe that he saw. But there was another witness who did see somebody trying to get into the house, allegedly.
I would think if he picked Joe out of a lineup, we'd hear about it. Same with David. The silence about a lot of these topics are the clue.
I think so too. And again, that's really just what's so glaring is there's no evidence against either of them except Rose and Chris. Joe at the mall and saying he said that he was there to kill a girl. I'm just reading Michelle. No hit or miss hit on a photo array or lineup is Brady, but should be turned over. Yeah, that his wasn't turned over either.
Right.
Have it. So was any of that corroborated? Eric, I'm not sure what that's to. Yeah, so Michelle's saying the biggest issue to her as a prosecutor is none of these lineups, nothing was turned over. And we know about the George Hale lineup, the first one. This is in Dwayne Pullman's special. But Hale said he identified a cop and told Dwayne that that cop was one of the lead detectives that he saw leaving the house. So no wonder that lineup wasn't turned over.
Right. That thing's gone.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys have any thoughts on any of these witnesses or lineups?
I think in my experience, prosecutors, even when they have a signed confession, go to most prosecutors. When they have a strong case, not only will they have the signed confession, they will bring in every bit of evidence, every bit of biological evidence, every witness statement, everything they can, because they don't want anything that possibly get thrown out or discredited by the defense. In this case, they kept a lot out, didn't introduce a lot, and then kept the defense in the dark on what exactly they had anyway. I mean, the strength of their case basically was a confused, homeless, broke 18-year-old's confession who changed his story throughout, as Sue has alluded to.
Still changing it.
Still can't get his story straight. And that was what convicted David.
Right. That's what's so grossly unfair, because there's nothing tying David to this except Joe, and Joe's just lying through his face. He can't tell the truth to save his life. Yeah,
so Josh is saying he allegedly paid $100 on a penny. I don't remember if that, I know that was like what was rumored, but I don't remember. Do you guys remember if that was it?
Yeah, it's written on the hotel receipt. They hand wrote $100, 0.01. They said the bill was like $57.76 or something, and he gave them the penny so he could get a quarter back. I wouldn't think to do that. I would do it if it was 10.01 or something. I'd give you a penny.
Friends with Joe, and Josh is saying right now Joe couldn't do that math, which I would definitely believe. I don't think Joe would think that or do that math.
No. I would have done that math.
They can't do that.
Just throwing down a hunting.
Yeah, I don't think he may have wanted a quarter for the payphone. That's true. Nice catch, Aaron. That is possible if y'all were using payphones.
Well, we discussed that maybe he needed to make a call, but at the same time, is he really calculating what his total is?
Right.
Even the one in the check-in process putting down that money. I mean, we have a receipt. We don't know that Joe physically ever checked in himself.
Right.
We don't know. We have the hotel manager testifying as to what the receipt says and the timing on the receipt that is odd. And she said the hotel clock could be 10 to 15 minutes off, which just seems fucking weird to me.
How does that happen? On a universal clock on a computer, it's 10 to 15 minutes off on one end of the day and 25 to 30 minutes off on the other end of the day. That's absurd.
So I just want to give a shout out to Tammy. I think it says Tam, so I'm guessing it's Tammy Alexander. Jamie.
It's my Tammy.
Do you guys have any thoughts while I read through some of these questions real quick?
Do we have a videotape of the hypnosis attempt or anything? Or tapes?
We only have George Hale saying this is what happened. We have no record of it at all.
Oh, okay.
They videotaped nothing. They didn't even audio tape most things.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that seems like something in line with what they would tape since they tape the psychic visit, just the way they're going.
The important stuff, huh?
Right.
Earn their parrots.
So I do want to go back to the hotel for 1 second. So someone just wants to know, was there really a hotel party? From everything we've gathered, we have no idea.
We don't know.
We don't know. We've never heard from anybody who has gone to the party.
And Joe didn't have an abundance of friends anyway, so it wouldn't have.
No.
Highly doubt it would have been a party he was throwing.
He was staying with the Enochs, his best friend Summer, and she wasn't invited to the party.
Right.
Yeah. So who knows? Joe, Josh, can you maybe answer in the chat? Joe didn't have any friends allegedly. I know you hung around him because of David, I guess, but did Joe have friends? And Josh, you can answer that. Someone in the chat wants to know, did Joe take them to find the knife? What John and Danny, what do y'all think about the knife?
It's kind of mixed up. The knife has changed. The dimensions of the knife changed. The location changed.
The style of the knife changed.
Right. They're quick. A horrid crime scene. They're quick to discredit immediately that a knife was swiped across the pillow to wipe blood off of it. But then they try and speak to witnesses that may have information and push them into pointing out different knives that it was similar to. And like Sue said, it was the knife that was initially presented was a knife with a 3.1 inch blade, which could just, I think scientifically, even the pathologists struggle to find that there's any plausibility that knife did the damage to have cut Yvonne's neck the way it was cut.
Joe did take them to a knife, but we don't allegedly, but we don't even know the circumstances around that. So that's something that is something that we're trying to track down definitively. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one and the pants. So there's a lot of questions about the pants.
The pants changed color from Rose's initial statement to her trial testimony. The pants changed color. The style of the knife changed color or changed from one to the other. So there's some issues there that we're digging into.
And
any pants worn there would have just been saturated in blood.
Yeah, if you see
Absolutely.
the photos, there's a reason we don't post them on the social because they're very graphic, and we want to respect Yvonne. And but Sue has some on her website, and if you want the full case file, every angle of the entire home and living room and scene, they are again on Patreon. But yeah, do you guys think someone walked out of there with no blood on them?
No.
No chance.
I'll tell you guys, I think Maggie mentioned this in the podcast, but our first trip here on the ground, Danny's and my first trip here on the ground was back in January. And if you've never been to Alliance, there's one main road that's, 5 lanes and just so well lit. And it is 4.2 miles from that hotel to Yvonne's house. So the idea that somebody had just committed this brutal murder that was very graphic and very messy, and then walked that 4.2 miles, even at night, on this well-lit road, walked right by bars that were there for around the college, and nobody really defies, all credibility.
I went out that same night of the year and at the same time of night and put my son on the road in the same clothes. And I stopped in oncoming traffic and I took his picture and you would have been able to see it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Sue, those photos are on your website, right?
Yeah.
And Josh just said the white Nike jacket, that's what he was allegedly wearing. We know this jacket exists. He was photographed wearing it 2 weeks later at a birthday party. No way he had more than one.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that seems to be something that we understand about Joe is that, he didn't have a lot of nice, fresh, Nike clothes and all that stuff. And the idea that he would have had more than one or that one did not have any blood on it, it just makes no sense.
Well, Sue, can you talk a little bit about where he potentially got these new clothes if it wasn't from David paying him. We haven't talked about it yet in the podcast.
Danny and I are leaning in to read because we're old.
They were Summer Enoch's clothes.
The jacket.
And the pants.
He
said they were both Summer's.
That's what he told you.
He borrowed her clothes to go to a party that she wasn't invited to.
Yeah, Debbie, I see your statement there, and I don't know if you're from Alliance or not, but the people that we've talked to, whether you're right, it wasn't as built up, but from what they all say, it was still extremely well lit, even back.
Car dealerships have been there for decades.
Yeah,
I would say now probably 80% of the retail business and food business in this town is on State Street. Interesting part, a continuation of Debbie's point, is that if this was an orchestrated, even halfway thought out hit, hired hitman kind of case, as they alleged, we've had Alliance police officers inform us there were 2 or 3 hotels in the vicinity of the McDonald's that was just at State Street, right near Yvonne's house. So to have planned this out, to put the guy at the furthest distance hotel at the time, and to put him on foot after he pulls off this murder is asinine.
Yeah, that's one thing that really jumped out to us as we really get familiar with the geography here. And as we talk to people, there was if they were really these great planners of doing this murder, there was one hotel that he could have just kind of ducked through the park right there and threw a little right up at her house. Yeah. So if they're really planning this out, then why are they getting a hotel that's four miles away on the busiest road in Alliance?
I'm not sure even today there's a hotel further out from the house.
No.
Yeah.
Tonight.
It's furthest. Plus, it's several stories high, and these other hotels are like no-tell motels, those one-floor things. You pull up in front of them and park, and nobody would ever have seen him. There's no cameras there.
Yeah. I can't remember. Maybe it was the Horseshoe Inn or something at the
Coach or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And I think someone just came into the chat and said, "How can there be no blood on the knife or the pants they found?"
It's a great question.
I just said because it didn't happen that way. I mean, it just is.
No,
it's possible. That's
the argument would be that they had been exposed to weather and stuff like that over the course of a few weeks before they were discovered. But I don't think that holds any weight at all. I mean, we've seen a lot of crime scenes and a lot of evidence that withstood a lot more than that and got something out of it. I just don't believe it happened that way.
I hired an expert and paid for the report after court, and he said he would expect there to be some. He said there's no blood at all on either item.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had someone write in who says, "I'm an otolaryngologist, ear, nose, and throat. They're a fucking ENT." And they said, "I seriously doubt such a small knife could have severed cardioid arteries, trachea, etc. in one slash. Cardioid arteries have a very thick muscular wall, and the tracheal larynx is composed of pretty thick cartilage." Yeah, to me, I mean, that's why to me, like, I say this again and again, like the reason on the podcast I talk about how graphic the crime scene is, because in my opinion, it doesn't look like a hit. I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I mean, to me, it just looks so personal the way it's.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Probably. After she was dead, and we believe drug away from the window and positioned in the living room floor, a TV was slammed and left on top of her. This was somebody really angry. Most hits, you don't have a whole lot of anger at your victim. You're there to do a job and leave. The crime scene photos show this. She ended up, after her throat was slashed, there are drag marks from the window, maybe 10 to 15 feet into the living room area, with the TV ending up on top of her body. Doesn't make sense for a hit. That's why I don't think it was a hit. I mean, that's why it doesn't have the appearances of a hit. It was, to me, it gives the appearance it was somebody that was very angry at her. Is that what you were going to say?
Pretty much.
So
Danny and I finish each other's sentences often. Maggie's probably tired of it.
No, I love it. It's great. I don't have to talk. Because when you guys were talking today about interviewing and how you're exhausted after interviews, like it just takes so much out of you, which I know Kevin, my partner, is in this room. It is
What's up,
fucking
Kevin?
exhausting to be that mentally on. So it's really nice for me to not have to do it for this entire podcast. So thanks, guys, for letting me be kind of chill a little. But yeah, I know Michelle and Erin, like anyone who's doing like depositions or just like communicating with people and having to remember what you said, what they said, follow up on that question. Fucking exhausting. Yeah, we had a long day today.
That's why I'm drinking wine and eating a cheese tray that Maggie bought.
We are drinking 19 Crimes wine and a really fancy cheese plate from the local grocery store.
Good stuff.
We might be popping the local, who knows? Yeah, okay, so someone did say, I do not, so Jason, maybe you can speak to this. I do not understand why this shit happens. If there's no evidence against David, why is he still in prison? It seems as though there should be some way to turn tables on the corrupt officers who were so obviously involved, their opinion. I bang my head in absolute frustration. Every new episode, my heart aches for him all the time. He has lost to live his life at the fullest.
The post-conviction, that's the most lengthy part of time. It's the most hopeless, part of any case. Everyone has, a right to a speedy trial, and you don't want to think, that the police can arrest you for a crime and keep you in a jail, for decades before you ever even have a trial. But what you want them to do is, to conduct a thorough investigation before ever arresting someone, and everything. But at the same time, you think if someone's out there is dangerous and committing crimes, you want to take them off the streets as soon as possible. But, like David's case here, here we are, 20 years so after the fact, and we're working, to uncover the truth in the case, asking questions that should have been asked, over 20 years ago. And the courts now, you would think that their interest is in justice in solving the case, but they're not. It's all about finality, and their goal is to make sure the case is not reopened, no matter what evidence is brought forth. And so that's a tremendous battle to be fought, and even after, with John and Danny and you, Maggie, down there, on the ground, boots on the ground, finding out the facts of the case and investigating and asking questions. That's just part of the battle. We still got to, use that to get in the courts, and use it as a key to, open, David's door. And that is another battle. But Sue is there, and she offers hope, to David, and you can't give up, and he can't give up. Y'all can't give up for one another. And you have a great team here with Maggie and Danny and John, fighting to find the facts of the case, and we're all fighting together. So that no matter how long it takes, you want to keep fighting the fight, but you hope that fight will be won today, as opposed to
right.
We're in it.
And sometimes, Jason, as you know better than anyone, you just want to not get fucking kicked in the teeth every time you're standing up to fight this fight, and
right.
You're always getting kicked in the fucking teeth by the powers that be, that just don't want to open up their minds and hearts to the fact that there was a mistake made in these cases.
It's a great point, because what you're saying is they always have this perceived pressure from the public to solve this case, right? Get this case solved and put the guy away. And it's all based on public safety. So you would think that wrongfully convicted, or people that there is a question on their guilt or innocence, that the courts would be very receptive to the possibility that the real killer is still out there affecting public safety. But it doesn't matter, because a lot of egos are so big that they cannot accept that they could have gotten this wrong. And because their egos are such, a lot of times they're not willing to take the chance that the real killer, and in Jason's case too, you three are free, and the public is safer, but nothing's been done to solve that case and find who killed the 3 boys in West Memphis. Or they're not out willing to take a chance and say, maybe we've got this one wrong with David Thorne and Joe, which if there's the slightest chance they did, that would mean that the real killer is still out on the streets.
Oh, just like in Daniel Villegas's case or Tim Howard's case, got to find who committed the crime. And even if we know who committed the crime, convincing the state to go after them. And, there's a mentality I've encountered, with a lot of state actors. And it's this mentality is that, everybody's guilty of something. And it doesn't matter if you're convicted of something you didn't do. And it doesn't matter that the guilty party got away with that crime because you got away with something. And it doesn't matter that you're serving time for something you didn't do. And it doesn't matter that the guilty party is free of that charge because they'll get them on something else. And that's the mentality that runs amok, that ruins the benefit of the doubt and presumption of innocence, in the pursuit of justice.
So the chat is popping off. So I want to get some of these questions answered. Someone wants to know, and I'm going to give this to you guys or, whoever really, but how can we all help? What is the next step? Is there a way the public can help right now?
With the system in general or with this case?
Well, they didn't specify, but I'm going to say with this case, I think they want to know about David.
I think one thing that's important that we utilize very effectively in Jason's case, in Daniel's case in El Paso, and in Marty Tankless' case, a couple of my very dear friends sort of led the charge with Marty all those years ago. Public pressure has an impact. So I think what we can do, what people out there can do is stay aware. And probably the best way to stay aware with what's going on is through Maggie's, various outlets. And if we come to a point where we believe it's really important to make phone calls to the prosecutor's office or whatever, then be willing to make those phone calls.
It's important.
Write those letters, write those emails.
So sorry to interrupt, but I do have an email blast right now. You can find, I'm going to put the link up on my Instagram bio tomorrow because I have this link up right now, but there have been a ton of people flooding the Ohio. It's pre-populated. I wrote it. You're welcome to change it however you want. Just put your name. I'm going to suggest change the title of the email just in case they started filtering spam emails with whatever, change the title so it does go through if they're filtering. But it's going to the prosecutor, the governor, whoever the fuck I put in Ohio for somebody to listen. So there is an email campaign right now. Again, tomorrow I will have it in my bio, but I know I posted it in the Facebook group. It was on my Twitter, so you can find it right now. But John, you may continue.
No, I think what we saw, what we've seen several times, but since Jason's here, in his case in particular, we had created this environment that did end up putting a lot of pressure on them that almost made it to where they were going to face backlash if they didn't, help work through that case. So those things are important.
What if you can't find who committed the crime?
Well, that's going to make it harder for David, just straight up. As Sue's talked about, he's gone through all the appeals, everything. It harder, but that's another time where we will do a full-on public relations push, everything that we can possibly do to put pressure on people to sit down with us and work with us and figure out a way that we can work through this. But it's going to make it harder, just straight up.
Michelle says, in New York, Michelle, the prosecutor, in New York, you can always bring a post-conviction motion with newly discovered evidence. Is it the same in Ohio?
It is. From what we spoke with a lawyer just a few weeks ago, Maggie and I did, and yes, anytime there's new evidence, you can bring it up and you can file on the new evidence.
And Josh wants to give a shout out. Josh and Tammy want to give a shout out to Sue. Finding the real killer is why Sue doesn't sleep at night. Tammy says Sue hasn't slept in 2 decades. Josh, it's time.
She's tired.
Sue just wants to sleep.
I just need a nap.
If you're local to Ohio, or even if you're not, I mean, I think even without the email blast, because that's going to a ton of people, they could truly be spamming it now. Take those addresses that I've compiled for you and just write the prosecutor individually. What's up with this case? It's dirty. Listen to this podcast. Go to this website. You can do those things and really tell them to pay attention.
Yeah, and occasionally, it very rarely, but occasionally it does, all the years that have passed since the crime, there's new prosecutors that are elected into office, and they have different considerations than the prosecutors did 20, 21 years ago. Now, often they're just all about protecting the conviction, like Jason alluded to, the finality of the law. That drives me crazy because the law should be interested in justice and not finality. But, a lot of it doesn't matter the new administrations that are in the DA's office. They just want to protect that conviction for finality of the law. And so it doesn't reflect poorly on their predecessors. But sometimes when we do have new prosecutors, they are willing to work with us in at least small ways that are helpful.
Yeah. So Michelle says, support DAs who want to serve with integrity and create conviction integrity units. So this is something I learned recently. Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong. There were only 4 state conviction integrity units in the entire country. And the newest, I believe, was Michigan, which is what Temujin Kensu is working with right now. So this is very, very new, very small. Ohio definitely doesn't have a CIU, but there is a new prosecutor in Stark County, Kyle Stone. He is a new prosecutor. He was sworn in January 4th, 2021. He's brand new. So we haven't approached him yet. I mean, he is on that email blast, but he's young. I don't know anything about him other than he's young. So maybe he's cool. Who knows? That's something that I think we'll definitely be looking into. I don't know, Tammy. His name is Kyle Stone. If anyone wants to do a quick Goog. Oh, unfortunately, David's prosecutor is a judge now. We did know that. And if it does go, they would have to recuse themselves for sure. But that's also to me, this reminds me so much of West Memphis, is like the prosecutor is now a judge. And so the rest of the 3 judges in the county, even if they recuse themselves, are fucking buddies with this other judge. So what are the chances of them? I mean, it's so... Well,
but sometimes small towns creates dirty politics. So, we don't know the answers as far as it relates to Stone, but sometimes those judges don't necessarily love each other. They've battled with each other in the past sometimes. Now, generally speaking, you're right, Maggie, but I'm an eternal optimist.
So Tammy says, get the case moved out of county. That's what we did. We would absolutely probably moved out of county. I mean,
we would try for that.
It's
sure.
Dirty as all hell. Michelle is like, these are my words, but I can't fucking believe the ADA is now a judge.
Right.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's incredible when it's just so gross. The whole thing is just so.
She shot David with a finger gun during court.
Oh, man.
That's how professional she is.
Yeah.
Michelle, close your ears. You're going to have a heart attack. I can't believe it, and I don't want to.
We need more Michelles in the world.
We do need more.
We do.
Good prosecutors.
Absolutely.
And then I always have Brett and Alice on. They are lovely prosecutors. I mean, in the work that we do, they're usually the enemy, but there are good ones out there.
There are.
Yeah. So, there are. And here's hoping Kyle Stone's a good one. She's the modern prosecutor, Rebecca says. So what else? Do people have other questions? Someone sent in bless this person. Actually, they put their names. It's Jen and Holly from Cleveland. Y'all are so amazing, but you wrote me a novel and it's very difficult to read what you have written. I know I answered a little bit of your stuff, If you want to email me or something or DM me, we can get direct answers for a lot of these really nitpicky questions. So someone brought up blood on the pillowcase, the knife swipe. So again, if you look at the crime scene photos, there is a knife swipe on the edge of the couch that very clearly, and you guys can disagree with me if you want, but to me it is very clearly, it is the kitchen knife that was found down the block. It's an imprint and a swipe.
It's on a pillow.
Yeah.
It was on a pillow. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, that looks more like a kitchen knife than a folded pocket knife.
It's sure as hell not a pocket knife.
It looked, yeah. And yeah.
But in trial, they tried to say that wasn't what that was, right? They tried to say that was not a knife.
I don't know. Was it brought up at trial?
They didn't. I don't think they thought it was either of the knives.
Yeah, they didn't. I don't think it was even like. Really.
They called the pocket knife the murder weapon. So once they did that,
but they tried to discredit that was a knife swipe of blood on the pillow.
Right. There's also a footprint on her back. They stepped on her back between the shoulder blades. So that's completely disrespectful. I mean, you've just killed her. How?
Yes, Michelle. The touch DNA is something very, very interesting. Michelle says, if I'm up all night reading these files, I'm blaming you. Michelle, just look at the crime scene. I mean, it's just absolutely disturbing. So on that, someone wants to know about Turvey. So was Turvey or anyone else able to explain how the blood got there if she was attacked near the sliding glass door?
Yes. His report stated that she was standing in front of the sliding glass doors, in front of the stationary one, and turned slightly to the moving one. And they came up behind her and slashed her throat. And then they took her under her arms. And that's why it looks like she sprayed everywhere, because they turned her around. And just as she was trying to go back into the living room, her foot slid through the blood and made that big swipe on the floor. So they assisted her from the place of the murder, the injury, to the floor.
That's a good point. It reminded me that Joe's confession, alleged confession, he says that he cut her throat. After he cut her throat, which we know was wrong, she stood from the couch, walked to the sliding glass door, and then returned to ask him, why did you do this?
Yeah.
She had no vocal cords left to have asked anything. And
right.
She was bleeding out. A police analyst, a crime scene analyst, said that 7 seconds was an estimated until she was dead from that cut.
Right. While her head is almost decapitated.
Right.
If you look at, and it's graphic, but there are autopsy photos. She is decapitated. Tammy wants to know, do the investigators agree with Turvey's theory? Joe said he was on the couch. Turvey says he was at whoever was at the door.
I believe that she was at the door.
Yes.
And Josh makes a good point. The psychic says she died on the couch, and the cops even initially said, no, she was at the door.
Yeah. I mean, there's things that I understand that I'm not an expert on. I'm good at some things and I'm not as educated on others. But based on everything that I know and have seen, and with this case and over the years, it appears to me that it's pretty clear that she was at the door. And the whole mechanics of how he initially said that he had cut her throat sitting on the couch make absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. But, that is not my area of expertise, but I'll tell you, it just looks from some experience that she was killed at the door. So she was clearly, there's a fairly clear drag mark through the blood, unfortunately.
And we don't think it's a crawl mark.
No. Again, that's not my area of expertise, but it just looks pretty. If there was
a crawl mark, you would see stop.
There's a pretty big.
It's like,
if you're crawling, you're having to use your hand. Yeah. There were no handprints that I saw.
I just want to clarify that. So Tammy follows up. So that completely discredits Joe. How can we believe Joe in anything if a major aspect of the forensics discredits his accounting? And then Aaron responds, Joe admits he was lying.
Yeah, Joe is, Joe's he's a bit frustrating at times because he's given so many, not at times, but he's given so many different. I mean, he just has. I don't know what to make of that yet. I've got thoughts that I'm, not going to talk about here right now, but it's very frustrating the number of accounts that Joe has given.
Guys, we have 10 more episodes. We're only halfway through this.
Really?
Y'all, we're just making it to Alliance in episode 9, y'all. We got a lot more to do. Is there anything in all of Joe's statements that remain constant?
Nope, I can't think of anything.
Just that he was at the mall. Just that he was at the mall.
He was at the mall.
This is what's interesting too, though.
I'm trying to read.
And I didn't even mention this to y'all today. When he gives his confession, he never once mentions Rose and Chris.
No, never does.
He mentions Sam Pegg, but he does not mention Rose and Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting part that stood out to me and John in the beginning was that when the recording of Joe's confession starts, he's basically told he's free to leave at any time. However, later in that confession statement, the cops acknowledged that he had already confessed to committing a murder, which if a guy confesses to admitting a murder, he should have never been told you're free to leave at any time, which makes us right. It was a staged confession, right? I mean, it was orchestrated because you can't say you're free to leave at any time. Are you making this statement at your own freedom, right? And then they come back and say he had already told him he had committed the killing prior to the recording.
So Aaron makes a good point. Aaron is our case file expert. He testified he was too high that night to remember talking to them. So that's how the prosecution dealt with it at trial.
That's right. Yeah.
He was too high, but
then they bring him back the next day knowing that there were some errors in how that went down and basically started over.
There were two tapes of Joe.
Right.
There were 2 tapes.
On the 14th, I think, and then another one on the 15th. Sue would know better than I, but.
Yeah, that's correct. And on the 15th, it opens with him sobbing.
Yeah.
So Tammy's she says, can we compare Joe to Charles in the Ryan Ferguson case? Interesting. We were just talking about Charles Erickson today. His story changed multiple times over the years, even when Kathleen Zellner went to see him the first time. Chris and Rose are sketchy. People in this chat are not liking Rose and Chris a lot. Anyone have
no comment?
Well,
Michelle says I have Chris. Michelle, what are your questions for Rose and Chris? Danny, go ahead.
Well, it's been in the podcast. We've reached out to Rose to try and speak with her, and our plan is to speak with Chris too. But that's why we're here, right? We're still working.
Chris and Rose were informants. This is a comment. Chris and Rose were informants. Look for reward money and deals. That's your answer. And Josh says 100%.
Yeah, I agree.
Rose and Chris at all. They were hating on Rose and Chris.
She sat in my car with me and she told me she thought Joe is guilty because he shakes like he's on heavy drugs. I said he's got a palsy that he's had since he was born. And she's like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, he does. It's in the records. Michelle wants to know, did they just inject themselves and maybe insert Michelle? I was like, are you asking about heroin? Did they just insert themselves into the investigation?
I'm going to be.
Well, I think we can share this. What was interesting that we found was that this happened March 31, April 1, right? That she's discovered on April 1st. Rose, facilitated through her mother, I believe, reports the incident early July, which would have been the entire months of April, May. 90 to 100 days after the event, she decides she's going to come clean, report this to the police, that they had run into this guy in the mall who said he was going to kill someone. He was there to do a job. And then the officers go and speak with her And then they obviously go and speak with Chris. I'm not sure what happened, but then Chris is suddenly arrested in the park the day after he speaks with the police officers on a drug deal that they acknowledged that the reason they apprehended him was because he had his hand in his pocket, which looked suspicious and looked drug related. These weren't patrol officers that arrested him. These were, what would you call them?
I mean, they were
not necessarily detectives, but they were not guys.
They're ranking officers.
Yeah.
They're ranking officers of the Alliance Police Department.
So within 2 days, maybe even 1 day of speaking with both Rose and Chris is now under arrest and remained incarcerated until 2 days after the conviction of David. And then he was released on time served.
Sounds like a narc.
Is that correct, Sue? Is my information correct?
Yeah. You just described a narc. You just described somebody who's making a deal to get himself out of trouble. Snitch.
He ain't no snitch.
I ain't no snitch. That's what he told me. I ain't no snitch.
So Michelle says, not the officers that would be making low-level drug busts.
No. Not in a park in the middle of the afternoon.
Because your hand's in your pocket.
Right.
I said, did you have drugs in your pocket? He goes, well, yeah.
So the cops were right, but it's just the timing of his arrest for being a low
convenient.
Is a little suspect. He was just in their office the day before about the case.
They probably gave him a ride to the park.
Tammy says they were surveilling him. Okay, time served, question mark. What was the charge? And Rose cooperated to protect her boyfriend.
I think the charge was cocaine.
It was
crack.
It was crack.
Yeah,
Crack cocaine.
Same shit.
Yeah.
Someone wants to know a knife in a sheath.
A knife in a sheath?
Yes.
What about
Rose said there was a knife in a sheath.
But Rose says she saw a knife in a sheath.
I mean, we have the audio of her that she's describing a knife, and she says, based on the conversation, she's obviously physically describing the length of the knife in this audio recording, but she doesn't say how. And then one of the officers says about 8 inches. So yes. Chris's original description was the folding knife.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Chris saw the fold. Yeah. Aaron is replying. Yes. Rose saw the sheath. Chris did not. So they have different accounts on this fucking knife.
Yeah. We're a little punch drunk right now.
Right. But we do remember this, right? That Rose's recollection is that that a man had hired him to do a job. Chris's recollection was different.
David's name was never, there was never a name.
Not his name.
No, not
a man had hired him to do a job.
Yes.
That was right. And Chris's recollection in his statement was that Joe's girlfriend had
sent him to do the job.
Yeah. There's a lot of conflicts with.
Yes. Tammy says, LOL, we have so many questions. So do we.
Yeah.
8 inch. A folding 3-inch knife.
A 3.1 inch folding knife is way different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's my hang up with that.
Yeah.
That is a big freaking difference.
Yeah.
Aaron says it was never closing. Rose and Chris were getting off work. There were timesheets. Yeah, they were working at a telemarketing place at the mall that night.
They only worked for an hour and a half that day.
Yeah.
And they quit the next day.
Early.
Yeah, they got off early that night.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap up soon. We've been here for an hour and 17 minutes, and God knows we are fucking exhausted. So Laura wants to know, this is random, but why baseball gloves? I think it was
the only gloves sold that night.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we have answers to that.
Unless it was part of the reason he didn't have any blood on him, right? We don't even know if he.
They didn't retrieve the gloves
for us to even look at it, right? If we believe what they presented the case to be, threw the knife in the gutter across the street, walked across the highway to throw the gloves in the McDonald's, then trekked 4.5 miles down to the Comfort Inn in a white jumpsuit with a white jacket and white Nike shoes. without drawing any attention. I don't care if there was one business. State Street's still the main street of this town. It's obviously not as developed. I mean, it's more developed than it was back then, but it's still the main thoroughfare through this city. We've been here enough to know.
We're looking at it right now.
Yeah.
You would see somebody covered in fucking blood.
Car lots were there decades ago. Car lots are very well lit and have cameras, which were not.
And he says, I want a cheap grocery store cheese tray.
It's pretty awesome, Aaron. It really is.
Because it's nice and muggy in this room and it's starting to sweat.
That's why I keep wiping my neck. I'm dripping wet.
Yeah, Tammy, he didn't. Tammy says, didn't he walk 3 miles covered in blood? Yes, but no. That's the story. That's the story.
What is it? 4.2 miles.
4.2 miles.
I thought it was 3.5.
No.
I think
I measured 3.9 when I walked it.
I recorded 3.5.
You got to drive around.
All we know is, even if you're walking a mile covered in blood, like,
when you go from her driveway.
Let's call it 4 miles.
Yeah.
Let's call it 4 miles.
That's it.
When you drive around to Lake Winnipesaukee in the back parking lot, it's a full 4
The
miles.
no-tell motel was in the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a minute, but I thought we'd get to some funny stuff. Actually, can we get to one funny thing that happened? Because I talk about this.
Oh boy. Oh no. Are we in trouble?
I don't know.
No.
That's funny.
No, this is funny. I don't even think Jason knows about this. So what had happened was, if you Google Yvonne Lane,
shit.
you get this beautiful glamour shot of this woman that is,
Oh, no.
22 years Sue's been using this photo, and the family.
22 years.
So Sue alleged, Sue didn't just come up with this photo out of her ass in 2000. Like, this photo was given to Sue by somebody in the family, and you'll know what photo it is because we originally had it as the photo for the podcast, and very quickly a lovely listener, a lovely listener viewer reached out and said, hey, that's not Yvonne Lane. That is model Summer Altice. And so day one of the launch of this insane, twisty turvy, the whole case is bonkers. And now we go, what? Immediately call Sue. I'm like, Sue, you told me this was Yvonne. What is happening? She's like, it is Yvonne. David told me it's her glamour shot. So I encourage everyone right now to Google Summer Altice. She was a Playboy centerfold, absolutely drop dead gorgeous. This photo that everybody for 22 years has been thinking is Yvonne is not Yvonne. Even her sisters post on their Facebook on her anniversary, missing my beautiful sister Yvonne, and it is model Summer Altice. So it just adds to the mystery of Yvonne. This photo is not Yvonne, and her family somehow thought it was. I don't know if that's weird or what's
still sitting on Brandon's bedside table.
It's on the son's bedside table. I mean, this is weird. This case is so bonkers.
When we first, you contacted us and I found the Facebook page, I said, John, there's a photo of her where she is a knockout.
Yeah, Playboy centerfold of the 90s.
And then there's some other pictures in which she just looks a little less made up. And you're like, well, I guess that's her. But damn, she's beautiful.
Yeah, gorgeous.
It's not her, y'all. It's not her. And we had to very emergency change that photo quickly. But now we're thinking, hey, maybe we could get Playboy model Summer Altice to be an advocate for David's wrongful conviction. We'll see. It's kind of funny. I think it's possible that this photo originated from Yvonne giving it to somebody, right, Sue?
I believe he used to go to swap meets, and you know how they pass out their headshots and things. I think they found that picture in his bedroom, and that he had gotten in the swap meet and put it in his bedroom. And after he was in prison, they found it and assumed it was Yvonne because it looks a lot like her if she would have taken glamour shots. So that's the only thing David and I can figure out.
It's not. I'm none of us have obviously met her in person. Even you, Sue, who is.
No, I never met her.
But the photos we have, it could be her with a lot of makeup in a glamour shot.
We thought, well, we've seen glamour shots make people look completely different. So we thought, well, it's a heck of a glamour shot.
Yeah. Whoever made it up did a great job.
I was wondering when you just brought that up, Maggie, if she hadn't have found the photo, if someone hadn't have mentioned her, hey, you look like such and such. Hey, you look like such and such. And so she just got the photo herself and passing it out.
Could be.
David, like, yeah, here's something to remember me about.
I mean, on my business card, I've got a picture of Brad Pitt, and I tell everybody it's me, and so far nobody's.
They believe it.
They believe it. Yeah.
Brad from Texas was just here.
Someone said maybe it was her advertising photo. Aaron said that. Yeah,
could be.
It just adds to the mystery of who was Yvonne Lane.
That's true, and I do, just to bring it down for a second.
We're going to end on a high note. You're going to.
I know, but I do. Yeah, who was Yvonne Lane? And that is a big mystery as we've been on the ground. Is who is Yvonne Lane? And it does always draw me back to, we've got this injustice of wrongful conviction, but it's also we've got to figure this out for her. I mean, she
right.
A lot of people in her corner based on what we've learned. So we've got to work for both.
She deserves justice too.
She does.
Absolutely does. Her children do.
That's
they're
right.
They're all here. And not here, but I mean, she's got 5 kids. They deserved a mom. So yeah, definitely. Tammy says, great point. Everyone's very excited about that point, John. Thank you. Because I think sometimes we do. We really, I know I do. I sometimes am really focusing on, the person that is currently living through the hell and kind of sometimes lose sight of the person that lost their life. So we'll conclude it for this evening, folks.
Y'all did wonderful, and it was great to be a part of it. And thank y'all for being there, boots on the ground, doing the hard work, and sending y'all support. And from back here at the Ponderosa, keep me informed.
I'll see you on Thursday, Jason.
Yeah, we'll be
Jason, this is we're here because you got out of prison, and with you and John decided you're going to help other people. So
that's wonderful.
Why here. That's why this podcast is thank God, going national. People nationally are hearing David's story. 1 million downloads so far. I mean, people are hearing us. People know. People are listening. Freaking town is listening. People are writing. We want to help. There will be more ways to help soon. Hopefully, we're working on some stuff. But do the emails right now. Get those emails out. If you have the time, individually email each of them and pointedly ask them, do you know about this case? What is fucking going on?
And I want to say that David and I appreciate all of you for all you're doing. We appreciate you very much.
Sue, you're an inspiration. So
you really are, Sue. I mean, I don't even think that episode about you did it justice, but we're not here if it weren't for you. And
I told David it was called The Wife. I said it was about me, and he goes, yeah, I put that together.
No, it was about Danny.
Let me tell you something. And honestly, of the cases we run into so much, we brainstorm so much, we collectively go through and analyze tons of documents, audio, photos, everything. It is a blessing to be able to hit a stump moment, and one of us get Sue on the phone immediately and her have the answer for us. Because in many cases, we'll pull over and spend 2 hours trying to find what it is we're looking for. And usually within minutes, we have that answer.
Usually I'm just texting Sue. I go, Sue,
right.
Where is this?
It's pretty amazing.
I know you sent it to me 30 times, but send it again.
Yeah.
And then I go on and on and on, and you're going, I got it. I got enough.
Stop.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone is saying that Sue is truly amazing. And Aaron, who has, again, seen and indexed and read back and forth this file.
Aaron's doing a great job, too.
She says Sue has the most organized. I mean, it is. And I've added, what I think is okay to be publicly available, again, to the Patreon. If you want to see it, it is there. Sue is amazing. And Michelle says, I've learned a lot from you all listening to the podcast that I can use in my own work. Good prosecutors.
Good.
Michelle, I just want to, next time I'm in New York, I want to sit down with have dinner with you.
Michelle is a legend. She said you better.
Okay, deal.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you everybody who has joined. We really appreciate it. Jason, Sue, Danny, John, thank you for sitting with me till 10:30 at night when I know we are all incredibly
Can we go get dinner now?
I've been snacking on cheese.
Thank you, everybody, so much. Thank you for supporting David. Thank you for supporting us. Aaron says Texas Roadhouse. You know us too well. We were there last night.
Yeah, not
we're
2 nights in a row
tonight.
Yeah.
But thank you, everybody.
Yep. Thanks, y'all.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Au revoir.
He's French.
Coming up next time on Murder in Alliance.
I know you have no idea who I am, but I have some interesting things that we've learned about Yvonne's murder through the years.
I know that someone as close as you had to have had a million thoughts run through your head wondering who could have done this to her.
Who was there? Who could possibly know something?
Yeah.
Is there an officer that lived near here in one of these houses close by?
I don't really want to get into all that. I mean, like I said, this is the end of this conversation.
I know you got family in law enforcement, right?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins is a captain there.
Well, hey, I gotta go. You guys have a great day.
Every time we reference police, that would shut it down.
If these people find out I'm talking shit, I'm done.
Came by one time, threatened to slit my throat.
I've met the killer, and I know where he is, and I suspect he's still killing, and yes, he's a cop.
Y'all, if you like this show, please consider joining the Unjust and Unsolved Patreon. It shows how much you care and helps us continue to tell these stories. Plus, you get some awesome bonus episodes, Q&As, and events as a thank you. And please rate and review. The more reviews, the more attention, and the more likely we're going to get tips and leads, and the right ears will be reached. Murder in Alliance is produced and reported by me, Maggie Freeling, with editorial consulting from Amber Hunt. Aaron Case is our legal intern, and Bob Mallory is our engineering assistant. For more information and resources, go to murderinalliance.com. You can find Murder in Alliance on Twitter and Instagram at murder_alliance, and join the discussion on Facebook at Unjust and Unsolved Podcast Discussion Group. Murder in Alliance is a production of the Obsessed Network. You can find all their shows at obsessednetwork.com.